you might say at Trump speed. Here's Chris.
Hello, everybody. I'm Chris Cuomo, and thank you for joining NewsNation. President-elect Trump will be speaking on our watch. We thought it was going to be right here at the top of the hour. Now we're told it'll be more about 8:20, 8:30. We'll see. When it happens, we're on it, okay? Now, hopefully, he's going to explain some of his selections for his cabinet. Is it a middle finger to the establishment? To those who didn't vote for him? To all of us? Does he expect to get some of these guys confirmed? Is this a recess appointment strategy? Now, because of some of the names and how unconventional they are, there's a new word in our vernacular, kakistocracy, government run by the least qualified. Is that fair? My answer is this: all will be revealed in time. And I have a bigger concern than what may be, because as you know, if you watch this show, I didn't believe any of the wild expectations about Harris nor about Trump. But I will tell you, the wild reactions to just the names that's happening right now and all of the dives into every kind of scandal we can find, some Trump voters are scratching their heads, and those who didn't vote for him are really worried that this is proof of the burn it all down design. Regardless of what it is, and again, I don't believe in the extreme interpretations. We're all in the same position. And that is that there is no upside to the panic that is spreading online and on our screens. Even if you're right, even if your worst case scenario is correct, what can you do about it right now? What do you control? You don't control who he picks. You control how you react to it. You control how you react to what happens, which is what matters. That's why we had the man who will be in charge of the border policy on our show for a big chunk of time last night. And thank you to the bosses for eating commercial time and letting us have more program time. I appreciate that. And I think it was helpful. That guy, you may like Holman, you may not, but he is not unqualified. He is not Matt Gaetz. He is not Pete Hegseth. He is not Bobby Kennedy Jr. So it was good to hear him. This is where his head is. This is why he wants what he wants. And I got to tell you, it didn't sound as extreme by half as the campaign. So let's see what Trump has to say tonight. I don't expect any great elucidation of how this all makes sense. I think it is a middle finger. I think that's what he is. I think he's angry. I think he's vengeful. But still, projecting into the future of what this is madness. All of the greatest minds agree with what I'm saying right now. This is not my idea. People have been dealing with infusions of power they didn't like for a long time. From Marcus Aurelius to Buddha to Eckhart Tolle, they've all said the same thing. Focus on what you control. Now, he's about to speak at Mar-a-Lago, America First Policy Institute Gala. Be nice to hear some policy. What policies are going to be better effectuated by the men and women that he's putting in place right now? The latest name is Bobby Kennedy Jr. to head up HHS. I will tell people who are like shocked. Why are you shocked? Just a week ago or 2 weeks ago, you heard him on NewsNation saying he's going to oversee all the agencies. That's what he had been talking to Trump about, overseeing all the health-related and drug-related agencies. Now it's just one. Health and Human Services Secretary. So, no surprise there. I'm going to bring in people tonight, specifically on that appointment, a former White House COVID czar, with his reaction based on where he thinks Bobby's head is on issues that matter, okay? But listen, I promise you, whatever is to come, we are going to be on it as fast and as hard as anyone, okay? We will be there in numbers and in strength to report and analyze what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and who must be held to account for what happens, good and bad. But getting ahead of it the way we are right now doesn't help anything. So let's tee up where we are and what we expect out of this address tonight. NewsNation correspondent at large, Geraldo Rivera, former spokesperson for Doug Burgum's presidential campaign, Lance Trover. It's good to have you both. Lance, I'll start with you. What are you expecting tonight?
I expect a huge victory lap. I mean, I think we'll take a second one. We haven't heard from him really since last Tuesday night. But I want to go back to something you said. We should play your intro to every Democrat here in Washington and everyone whose heads are exploding in Washington right now, because I don't know what they haven't learned over the course of the last 9 days since Donald Trump got elected. Every time that they lean in and go ballistic in this world-ending rhetoric that comes with every single appointment that he makes, it just energizes his base. It empowers him. And frankly, I think when people, the voters who voted for him, the 75 million voters who voted for him, hear Washington, D.C. getting mad about it, that tells them that they made the right decision last week in putting him back into office. Because let's face it, 75% of the thinks we're on the wrong track.
All right, but hold on. Lance, it's not just the people who voted against him. You know a lot of your people, and I hate saying that, by the way. I hate saying anything that indicates division as to the idea that we're all Americans. But people who voted for him, a lot of them are worried about some of these selections as well. So it's not purely partisan, but I agree with you. There's way too much of this, way too much. We don't know what any of this means yet.
Well, and I think that, look, Donald Trump was duly elected, and like every other president, he has allowed some latitude to pick who he wants to pick. We have a process here in this country. Yep. The Senate is going to deal with these nominees. These people are going to have all that is going to be a process. Voters put their trust into the system.
I'm with you. Now, unless he tries to do recess appointments, I don't buy into that. It's something that's in the air. But I put it out there for people's consideration. I don't think that's what's going on here. I think he believes he can flex on the Senate. Now, Geraldo, do you think Trump may be out over his skis with not just some of these names, but the game? Because if he watched what happened in that Senate vote yesterday for the leader, his guy, Senator Scott out of Florida, did not get the reception he thought he would.
Well, I think, first of all, to say that he's allowed some latitude is perhaps the understatement of the century. This is not allowed some latitude. This is an earthquake. This is blowing up Washington, D.C. And the selection particularly of Matt Gaetz to run the Justice Department is a giant, that is the giant FU to the critics. Because he's putting in Matt Gaetz. Not only is he perennially under investigation, he's barely a lawyer. He's never practiced law except for a very short time at a small firm in Florida. He's never prosecuted a case. This is going to be the president's lawyer. This is going to be the chief law enforcement officer of the country, a clearly incompetent person who's running from an ethics committee investigation report. That's why he resigned Congress. Come on, this is not... I am willing to give him all the latitude in the world. God bless him. He got an amazing victory. He got one in a tidal wave. It was historic in every regard. He earned the ability to do whatever he wants. That's why you would expect him to be rational. I'll give him Tulsi Gabbard. I'll give him Pete Hegseth. I'll give him Mike Huckabee as the ambassador to Israel, and so on. And Todd Blanche, he's now floating Todd Blanche's lawyer.
Todd Blanche is number 2 at the DOJ.
In New York.
Todd Blanche is for the audience, Geraldo. Todd Blanche is a real lawyer. He understands prosecutions. He understands the system. He's the deputy under Gaetz. That move is obviously a backstop move for Gaetz as an extension of his strategy. I'm surprised. I mean, you know Hegseth. I don't know him. You were at Fox with him. But a guy who's never managed anything to be inserted into the Pentagon at the highest level, we've never seen anybody like him put into government since RFK, who went in as John's brother to do what he wanted him to do, and people were upset then too. But I'm surprised you just gloss over Hegseth as he makes sense as Secretary of Defense.
Well, can I jump in? Let me just jump in here. I mean, the guy went to Ivy League school. He went to Harvard and Princeton. That's usually folks who would be throwing jobs at him.
Now that's a good thing?
That type of pedigree.
Lance,
and he's been in the
you
military.
guys have been using, Lance, you guys have been using an Ivy League education as a cudgel for like the last 3 years. Down with the elites. It sucks to be smart. Now, the fact that he went to an Ivy League school is a good thing.
What I'm saying is usually the left will be flooding here in Washington, be wanting to throw jobs at somebody with that type of pedigree. Never mind the fact that he served 20
I know
military.
Pete Hegseth. Hold it a second. I know Major Pete Hegseth. He's a war hero, twice awarded the Bronze Star. He's very close to the veterans community. He has been their foremost advocate. Yes, it is a very, very steep learning curve. And yes, some very high-ranking Pentagon veterans have told me they have misgivings, Chris, over exactly what you mentioned, his lack of experience in running any large organization, other than his veterans charities and so forth. But he's a sincere person, strong, courageous. He's a person of good character, unlike Matt Gaetz. There's no ethics investigation about Pete. Pete is a very solid citizen, and I expect maybe he'll be over his head at first. It is 3 million employees after all. There's very few people that have that kind of administrative experience, but he is a good man. Tulsi Gabbard is a good person also, another combat veteran. Who I think will surprise people with her competence. Mike Huckabee is a very decent person. And I sat on the couch with these people for decades. Really. But Matt Gaetz, how do you pick that guy? I heard someone compare, is he the Roy Cohn of Donald Trump, the one he has longed for? Roy Cohn was a million times better lawyer than Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz is a destroyer. His whole life, all he wanted to do was stab Kevin McCarthy in the back and send the Congress in total disarray and dysfunction. I mean, I really cannot believe this appointment. It's not only shocking, it is disgusting to me.
You've probably heard this the same way, okay? But here's what I hear from the people who are at Mar-a-Lago. Lance, you check me on this, okay? Gaetz has one qualification, and I'm not being petty. I'm not saying he loves Trump. No. Every step of any examination of what Trump said or did by Congress or the DOJ, he was against. He said it violated the Constitution. He said it was lawfare. He was early, and he was in earnest all the way through. And the thinking with Gaetz, which is the same with Hegseth, you got to remember, the DOD is the largest employer in America. The idea that you go in there with no experience and you'll just have fresh eyes is silly, unless the reason you're there, Lance, and you check me on this, is that Trump isn't putting you there to run it. He's not putting you there to improve it in terms of its systems and personnel. He wants to be a check against what they can do to him. He wants Gaetz because he trusts him not to run the DOJ, but to make sure that the deep state people are in there won't be going after him because his guy's at the top and can stop it. Same with Hegseth. What do you think of that?
Well, I don't think it's unreasonable, and I think voters have concerns about the Justice Department. I mean, let's just take a step back of what happened. I know we don't need to relive this, but this Justice Department raided his home, a home of a former United States president, when the sitting president of the United States, whose Justice Department effected that raid, had his own treasure trove of documents hanging out in his house. So it's no surprise. And
one cooperated, one did not. One cooperated, one did not. They begged Trump to give the documents back, and he refused because he wanted them to do what they did so he could look as a victim, and it worked.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying in the eyes of voters, it is not unreasonable for them to think that there is a two-tiered system of justice in this country when one gets away with something and doesn't. That is my point.
Then why not? If the concerns of voters is really your sincere apprehension, then why not put Tard Blanche, the fine lawyer who defended Trump very competently in New York? They named him number one. Chris suggests that he really has named him because he expects Gaetz, I'm not putting words in your mouth, Chris, to implode. But I think anything is possible. I also think that recess appointments, if he's giving this giant FU to convention and to the Democratic establishment, it seems to me that you want competence. You want to reflect at least Yes, we're shaking up everything, like with RFK Jr. going into the HHS. It's wild,
HHS.
It's crazy, but there is a logic to it that, maybe this could work out. But with Gates, what's going to work out? That when the Ethics Committee report comes out and he shows that he has sex with minors allegedly and smoking dope with kids in the airplanes, if
they had proof,
when he gets in the Justice Department,
Geraldo, if they had proof that Matt Gaetz had any kind of illegal contact with minors, it would not be a House report. The DOJ, which ended their probe, would have had the same proof, and they would have come for him. So I don't know what's in the ethics report.
Why did he resign yesterday?
Because he's going to be AG, and he doesn't want them to try to kill him from the inside. I get the tactic.
Yeah. And let me just close this. I want to go back to what I was saying. So the idea of this Justice Department, people having concerns about it, is Matt Gaetz the right person to deal with all that? Well, that's up for the U.S. Senate to decide. And that's what
Trump's
I go back to what I said.
That's Trump's call.
Up to the Senate.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is I want to get a break in. Dusty's telling me I got to get a commercial in. But the only thing I'll say is the reason I teed up a question that Geraldo in his own discretion, and nobody gets more latitude, not even Trump, than Geraldo because he is the man, is that I wonder if Trump was paying attention to that Senate leader vote yesterday. Because the guy he said for them to pick is not the leader yet. And that's an interesting indicator. I wonder how that's informing his process about how much leeway he gets. Gentlemen, hang with me because I definitely need you when he speaks. I want to take a break, though, pay some bills before President-elect Donald Trump comes in, gives his first speech to the nation since election night. Remember, NewsNation called this election first, not because we knew things that nobody else did, but because we don't play the game of fear or favor. That's why we gave it to you when we knew it. Stay with us. We'll give it to you straight. Welcome back to News Nation. I'm Chris Cuomo here, joined by the one and only Geraldo Rivera and Lance Trover, who worked with Governor Doug Burgum, understands the Trump mentality as well as anybody. And we were reviewing whether or not the president-elect, when he comes out tonight to speak to us from Mar-a-Lago, will explain the strategy behind some of his picks. And I don't want to throw them all in the same bucket. Geraldo was right to make the distinction. Matt Gaetz is the one that has the big target on him right now for scrutiny. And it'll be interesting to see how he speaks to it. And we've been talking about that. Now, while we're waiting for Trump, I did hear, fellas, that Sly Stallone is going to speak at the event. And one of the nice things about having a show is you can do what you want. I'm listening to Sly Stallone. When he goes up to that podium, he's up there in Geraldo echelon of coolness in my mind. So Dusty will tell me, and we will take Geraldo. We will take Geraldo. We will take Sly. But Geraldo, the idea of you're right to focus mostly on Gaetz. Elections have consequences. And do you believe Trump is making a mistake by putting someone in there who will watch the watchman for him?
I do, and the reason I do is that the other picks that I mentioned, Gabbard, Hegseth, Huckabee, and so forth, they're very controversial, and yet I believe there's an upside. I believe that they're fine people, strong character. They will bring innovations. Even RFK Jr., it could be, with all of the focus on obesity and diabetes and autism and mental illnesses, maybe he's got something and he can help steer a health revolution. I'm all for it, and I'm willing to suspend disbelief and give him a shot. But when you have a total sleazebag, when you have someone who just wanted to gum up the government, he went after Speaker Kevin McCarthy for nothing other than spite, the fact that he could. I don't know why President Trump would disparage the other controversial picks by picking someone so clearly inappropriate for this high office. I mean, Bill Barr saved the country when Trump brought him in the first term, when he was totally embattled. I thought Bill Barr helped save us by steadying President Trump, by fending off his attackers. I really think that he did an amazing job. Imagine if it had been Matt Gaetz. in the same situation,
right?
They would have barricaded the windows.
I take the point, but Lance, we heard this from Kelly, we heard this from Mattis, we heard this from Barr, and politically people deem them traitors. Personally, I wish that they had made their witness while they were in their positions of power. But each of them said, hey, man, you got to be on this guy. Otherwise, he's going to do things that are shock the conscience, unless there's someone there to talk him out of it. Do you believe that that is necessary and that it is now lacking?
This argument that he needs to be watched and all this stuff, they aired all of this stuff over the course of years. It devolved into calling him Hitler at one point. It devolved into calling him fascist at one point. And he's about to cross the 76 million mark of voters in this country. And so they have aired their concerns. I would just go back to what the voters said 9 days ago, that they are putting their trust back in him. I think, I was thinking that but this guy has laid out the most transparent agenda. I don't know about you guys, his agenda's out there for everybody to see. He said what he was going to do. It's not like somebody walked into a voting booth and didn't know that he had been indicted. It's not like somebody walked into a voting booth and didn't know that RFK was going to lead the healthcare system in this country. He has been abundantly clear from day one, and that's one of the things about Donald Trump. And so when we go to tonight, what's he going to talk about? I mean, I don't know what he's going to talk about tonight, but my guess is he will hit on some of this stuff because he goes out and he's very straightforward and honest. We're watching
the former president right now. I don't want to step on him. Look, he needs to address the country. I hope one lesson he learned from his first term is if you want to control the understanding, you want to use the bully pulpit, use it to talk about the things that matter to the American people. What I'm hoping is, and what I'm trying to slow people down from right now with Gates, and he did not campaign on picking Matt Gates, Lance, we'll all agree on that.
Fair point.
Let's not do what we did the first time. You cannot have a conniption fit every time he says something crazy, because I'm telling you, everybody who's on the TV screen right now knows President-elect Trump, okay? And I'm telling you, he doesn't operate the way the rest of us do in terms of what he cares about saying and not. Sly Stallone, I care about hearing him.
If you remember, the first image was a picture of Jesus, and it says Resurrection AC Club. I found a church that had been converted to a boxing ring. So the image pans down from Jesus onto Rocky being hit. And at that moment, he was a chosen person, and that's how I began the journey. Something was going to happen. This man was going to go through a metamorphosis and change lives, just like President Trump. We are in the presence of a really mythical character. I love mythology. And this individual does not exist on this planet. Nobody in the world could have pulled off what he pulled off, so I'm in awe. And I'll just say this, and I mean it. When George Washington defended his country, he had no idea that he was going to change the world. Because without him, you can imagine what the world would look like. Guess what? We got the second George Washington. Congratulations. But
Sylvester Stallone likens President-elect Trump to Rocky and to George Washington. Geraldo Rivera, response. We both love Sly Stallone. We both love Rocky. It's such a motivation for both of us.
Him, absolutely, and he's a wonderful, wonderful person. I don't want to step on the president, but the president is Rocky. I mean, what he did is the biggest comeback of all time, bigger than Napoleon.
Oh, that's a good perspective. People, when they have a chance, you should Google what happened with Napoleon and how he came back and how he manipulated the system to find his way back in. I don't mean manipulated in a bad way. Now, we know that President Trump likes to listen to this entire song, President-elect Trump, before he speaks. So we'll keep going until, we'll let the ceremony go. You see it on the screen, but he's not going to speak until it's over. Lance, why does he always wait for this entire song, by the way?
He loves this song. I think this is a guy who loves America. I don't mean to sound cliche or whatever. I actually think he believes in what he's doing. I mean, you look at this is a guy who came down those escalators, and it's really, look, was it 9 years ago, he came down the escalator at Trump Tower. And if you really think about it, his message to the voters has never really changed. It is that Washington is working against you. The people in Washington think you're deplorable. They think you're garbage. And I'm the only one that can come in and fix it because I can't be bought and any of that stuff. And I think it's been a message that has resonated and has come back at just the right time after 4 years of Joe Biden. I think he loves America. I really do.
I'll tell you, when I was coming out to do the show, someone was talking to me about this. They were very concerned. They voted for Trump. And I said, look, he won. Okay? Now we'll see what he does with it. And that's the way it works. And but he's going to destroy. He didn't the first time. Okay? Oh, but that's because they stopped him. I don't think that's true. And I don't think he's Rocky. I don't think he's George Washington Part 2. I don't think he's any of the things that even Lance is saying. But it doesn't matter. He's our president-elect. And you got to give him a shot to fulfill the mandate of the American people, not just the Electoral College, and see what he does with it. And then you can jump all over him. But you got to let him do something first. Final word from you, Geraldo.
He is the biggest star on the planet. He is absolutely above and beyond any movie star. He's really historic, and he's made history already.
Oh, thank you, Sly. Sly.
All right, here he is, President-elect Trump.
That stuff. And he did a beautiful job, and I want to thank you and John Voight for being here. John, the great fight movies, I think Sly has a lot of them, and John has The Champ. What a movie that was, right? But I want to thank everybody for being here. When Mrs. Post and E.F. Hutton, her husband at the time, when they built Mar-a-Lago many years ago, the Roaring 20s, it was the Roaring 20s, and we're hotter right now than they ever were in the Roaring 20s, I believe. And we're going to be a lot hotter, but we're going to keep it going. We're not going to have 1929 happen. Although, if it would have continued the way it was, it might not have been too good. But when they built it, nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew opulence. Nobody knew real luxury. Nobody knew poverty. They didn't know anything. And they learned a hard lesson. In 1929, they learned a very, very hard lesson. And we're going to turn our country around. We're going to make it so great, so strong, so powerful. We're going to bring it all back. I want to thank some people that have been so instrumental in doing such a great job in terms of not only policy, but people, and people love them. Brooke Rollins, who put this on with Linda McMahon. Linda has been a great friend of mine for a long time, right, Linda? I want to thank you very much. And the America First Policy Institute, what a job they've done. But I said, the policy is much more important if we do it for 8 years than it is if we do it for 4 years. So I said, let's do this. Don't worry about your policy. Let's get out and let's win the election. But nobody knew we were going to win it the way we wanted. That was a big one. So that was really great. And Javier, I'd like to congratulate you on the job you've done for Argentina. Your speech was beautiful, but the job you've done is incredible. Make Argentina great again. MAGA. He's a MAGA person. And he's doing that. He's actually doing that. Just happens to work with EA. That one we don't have to worry about. It doesn't work so well with other countries. But you know what? I think your numbers are working also. You've done a fantastic job in a very short period of time. It's an honor to have you here. That's really great. Thank you. Also, Speaker Mike Johnson, wherever you may be, Mike, in this very big and crowded room. Thank you, Mike. I went yesterday, just in case, I said, look, I want to tell you I'm behind this man 100%, and he got 100% of the vote from Republicans. Are you sure? You sure, huh? No, he's doing a great job. Nothing easy. We actually had one little period, about 4 weeks, where we had a majority of 1. That was not pretty, right? And you handled it beautifully. He just kept that stiff upper lip. But he's doing a really good job, and that was a great vote you got yesterday. Totally unanimous vote. Congratulations, Mike. That's beautiful. Members of Congress, all of whom voted for Mike, and They've been my friends. It's just a small group, but we have a lot of them outside, and we have a lot of them coming over the weekend. Byron Donalds, the star. Where's Byron? Byron, what a star. What a star. Thank you, Byron. Ronnie Jackson, Doc Ronnie, he's been a lot of things. He was my doctor. He was a great admiral, highly respected admiral, great doctor at the White House, and now he's a very popular congressman. He won by 48 points. That's pretty good. Of course, it was a very, very Trumpy district, but he won by 48 points. But when he was a doctor, they asked him the question, the fake news, which is here. Look, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. We invited him, and they said, can we come in? I said, we have nothing to hide as Republicans, right? We have nothing to hide. But they asked Ronnie, they asked the doctor, he was up in the podium, who's the healthiest? Because he was the doctor for Barack Hussein Obama, Donald Trump, and he was the doctor for Bush also. They said, who's the healthiest of them all? He said, without question, it's Donald Trump. And I said, I like that guy. I said, I like that guy. And he's doing great. Jason Smith is here, a great, great congressman. Wesley Hunt, wow. And Mike Waltz, who's going to be doing a little other work for us in the very near future. We just nominated him, and he's going to be doing a great job in the administration. And I promised Mike that I wouldn't be taking too many more before we start counting the votes, okay? He said, please, could you slow down a little bit? I just like the people in Congress, Mike. I'm sorry. But no, don't worry about it, Mike. Just relax. Just relax. We have a man who has a seriously high IQ. I'm a person that believes in high IQs, and his is about as high as they get. He launched a rocket 3 weeks ago, and then he went to Pennsylvania to campaign because he considered this more important than launching rockets that cost billions of dollars. Elon Musk. Elon. What a job. What a job he does. And he happens to be a really good guy. He likes this place. I can't get him out of here. He just likes this place. And you know what? I like having him here, too. He's good. He's done a fantastic job. Really an incredible mind, and he's an unbelievable entrepreneur, sort of everything. I'm asking him, what do you do best? And we were not able to figure it out, but it's a lot of things. Another one who's another great mind and a great guy and so popular, and I think he's right. He wants to make people healthy. It's driven him pretty wild over the last number of years, and the Democrats didn't treat him well. He was doing fantastically well, and I think they came out with some rule that you had to do this, Mike. You had to get 70 or 75% of the vote to qualify to be in the primary. That was a pretty tough thing to get. And he was doing incredibly well, and he decided he can't do it, went independent. Now he's with us all the way. And today I nominated him for, I guess, if you like health and if you like people that live a long time, it's the most important position, RFK Jr. Bobby? Good. And I just looked at the news reports. People like you, Bobby. Don't get too popular, Bobby. Oh. You've reached about the level. Now, we want you to come up with things and ideas and what you've been talking about for a long time. And I think you're going to do some unbelievable thing. Nobody's going to be able to do it like you. And boy, does he feel it in his heart. So congratulations also to your family. And a woman who was a Democrat and was an independent, she went independent, and last week she said, I want to be a Republican because this is what I stand for. And I've always admired her, and I've admired her because she was loaded up with common sense, and it's all about common sense. I mean, we're conservative in this room, but we can understand the other side, but what we really are is people with common sense, and I think that's why we won with the numbers that we won by. Tulsi Gabbard. Thank you, Tulsi. Great common sense. And you have Vivek Ramaswamy. It's taken people a long time, and now that name is emblazoned into their brain. But Vivek, wherever you may be, where are you, Vivek? Thank you, Vivek. Good. He's working with Elon on efficiency. They're working on efficiency, among other things, and they're going to be saving a lot of money and making our country stronger and better. And they'll be coming out with individual reports, but a big one toward the end. And you put those two together, it's going to be really great. So we look forward to seeing it, working with Elon, and that'll be a great experience. You're going to learn something from Elon, I think, right? It's going to be great. Thank you very much, Vivek. And great job. What you've done is fantastic. And somebody that I've admired for a long time, but I've really gotten to know him in my political life, but especially, I think, over the last year, more than maybe ever before, maybe more than even than the first 4 years, because we had a tremendous success through my first term, and then bad things happened, and we had to wait. I couldn't wait. I was saying, they're not going to do it. They're not going to help us. They're not going to save this country. And it really dawned on me about 10 days out. I said, wait a minute, with 10 days, I waited 4 years, 3 years, 2 years. All of a sudden, it's 10 days, and then every day seems so long. But I knew by the crowds we were getting, it was going to be really something. And Newt Gingrich got up, and he said, this is a very special thing that's happening, because nobody has ever had crowds, and they just wanted hope. They wanted something. They just didn't want what they had. And nobody expressed it more beautifully than Newt Gingrich. And thank you, Newt, very much. It was really beautiful. And Callista, thank you very much. Thank you, Callista. But the American people have just delivered really something very, very amazing. The biggest political victory in 129 years. Can you believe that, Newt? 120. They said the most consequential election. I love that word. It's a beautiful word. Most consequential election in the last 129 years. Wow, that's something. So we swept all swing states. We won the popular vote. Oh, I love that. You know, in the last one, in my first term, they said he won the election, but they always followed by he didn't win the popular vote. That's what they say. I don't even know is it true or not. Who knows? But they would say he didn't win the popular vote, and we won the popular vote by records now. So nobody can say that anymore about us. Nobody can say that because we won the popular vote. And I didn't win it. The people won it. The great people of our country won the popular vote, and that's what they wanted. And this was something really special. Won the White House, recaptured the Senate, and now, as of today, recaptured the House. Thank you very much, Congressman. And on track, looks like we have it, the largest margin in the national vote in presidential year since 1928. That's a long time ago. Well, that's interesting. That's when this House was built, 1928. It took a lot of years, but that was when it was completed. And something that I just read here, and I saw from one of our friends from the news, from the media, we won, I didn't know this, we won 49 out of 50 states, shifted toward the GOP significantly. That's a big number. So we won the largest share of black and Hispanic votes of any Republican in the history of our country, recorded history of our country. So we won, think of that. We won the largest share of black and Hispanic voters. That's so incredible. They're unbelievable people. We respect them. We admire them. They've been through a lot. And they like us, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, but if you take a look at the border of Texas, the governor called me, Greg Abbott, who's a great guy, called me up. He said, you won every single town on the border, and these towns were always blue. They were a dark, strong blue, and we won every single town up and down the border in Texas. We won with married women. What about unmarried women? What happened to unmarried women? We won with married women. We won half of all ages. Think of that. More than 50% of the 18 to 29-year-olds, the highest in many decades, the highest number. And again, it really has to do with common sense. You know, people don't want men playing in women's sports, right? They don't want it. They don't want it. You know, I said that during the last few weeks, I was very heavy on the common sense things, like they want a border. They want people to come into our country. They do. They don't want to have exclusion, but they want to come in legally through a system. They don't want them coming in through prisons and through where you dump a prison from countries all over the world, dumping prisons into our country. The prisoners dumped into our country by the millions. They don't want that. They don't want all of the kind of things they don't want drug dealers. They don't want gang members. They don't want people that are causing trouble. They don't want people that the country doesn't want. And they had I would say a truth, Elon would say an X, but it came out and it had 12 different things, and it went down a list of things, and part of it was that the cartels were bringing in drugs. They don't want them at stopping. Wait till you see the numbers that are going to be released. In 2 days, things happened to our country. This is 2 days as of 3 days ago, but things are happening to our country that we didn't see happening for years. The caravans on the way up, 35,000 people, they're breaking up. They're breaking up. They're not making the journey. And we had 3 or 4 of the highest, I guess almost every single day we set new records in the stock market. We set new records economically. We're doing it. Now, the only thing is, Mr. Speaker, I think it's important, maybe you should pass a bill. You have to start my term from November 5th, okay, or November 6th if you want. November 5th, because the market's gone through the roof. Enthusiasm's doubled. It's doubled in the last short while. And I watched a liberal commentator say, you know, whether you like him or not, there seems to be a beautiful light shining over our country and even over the world. I said, this guy didn't say that. But we have to defeat inflation, and while inflation's down, the costs are way too high. And when I went around, I heard something that was very interesting, the word grocery. It's sort of such a strange and simple and nice word. You know, I'm going out for groceries today. They talked about that more than any other item. The groceries are too high. And when you think about it, that's a very bad thing. And I talked about that a lot in the last couple of weeks, and it resonated. I tell a story about a woman. She got 3 apples, an old woman. She had 3 apples, and she brought them up to the cash register, and she looked at the woman, and she said, is that the right price? And the woman said, yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. Yes, it is. And she said, oh, that's okay. Could you wait 1 minute? And she took one of the 3 apples, and she brought it back to the refrigeration, and she came back gently up to the cash register, and she paid for 2 apples instead of 3. That should not be happening in our country. That should not be happening here. It's not going to happen here. We're going to make it a much different place. We're going to slash energy costs. We're going to get your energy bills in half, and that's going to bring down the cost, generally speaking. And we're going to have a whole new. We have a big announcement, and I won't tell you the name of his, the exact name. I think he's an incredible person. Got an unbelievably wonderful wife named Catherine. So I won't tell you his name. Might be something like Burgum. He's from North Dakota. He's going to be announced tomorrow for a very big position. So everybody's waiting. There he is. Hi, Doug. He's going to be announced tomorrow, and we have somebody else that's probably coming up with him to be announced, who's a big one. And we're going to do things with energy and with land, interior, that is going to be incredible. And so I look forward to doing the formal announcement, although this is a pretty big announcement right now. Actually, he's going to head the Department of Interior, and he's going to be fantastic. Good, Doug. Congratulations, Catherine. But we'll make the formal announcement tomorrow. All right? We're going to reduce regulation, waste, fraud, and inefficiency, and these 2 guys are going to find a lot of it. We're going to clean out the corrupt, broken, and failing bureaucracies, and that's what we're going to be doing. And we're going to stop child sexual mutilation. We're going to stop it because it's time. It's time. It's time, and it's not right what's going on. It is mutilation, and it's not going to happen. We have to stop it. We have to get back to a great country with low taxes and strong military. We're going to fix our military. We did it once. Now we're going to have to do it again. We didn't know a big chunk of it was going to be given to Afghanistan. We're going to work on Middle East, and we're going to work very hard on Russia and Ukraine. It's got to stop. Russia and Ukraine's got to stop. Thousands and thousands. I saw a report today. Thousands of people over the last 3 days were killed. Thousands and thousands of people were killed. They happen to be soldiers, but whether they're soldiers or they're people sitting in towns, we're going to work it. So I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I really want to congratulate Linda, you and Brooke for the job you've done. And it's an honor to be here. And thank you, Sly. Thank you, everybody. Great honor. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to bring back the whole panel, and I want Dusty to add a couple of more people who did the job and understand big issues that are going to be involved in this mandate. But I do hope, if you're watching, the reason you've got to allow Trump to make the choices he wants to make and watch what they do, like or not, is because the case he just made right there is what won the election. Look, the way he puts it, the language he uses, I get how maddening it can be for some people. Grocery, it's such a nice word, it's a simple word. I don't know why he says things like that. But groceries were the main economic issue and the main driver of this election. Cost of living, okay? Cost of living. And the culture issues that he highlights, you may roll your eyes, but they mattered. And the Democrats are now in adjustment mode to figure out what they're going to be for and not just against, because you're not going to win a grievance and which is worse contest against Trump. So you got to figure out something else if you want to win, because that movement is going to continue. So let's discuss what was said, what it means. Geraldo Rivera, of course. Lance Trover. Boy, Lance, you got lucky. If he had kept his own secret, instead of not saying what Burgum was going to be the head of, I was going to be all over you like white on rice, and you were going to dance, and I was going to come at you. So you got lucky. We also have former White House COVID czar, Dr. Ashish Jha, and former acting director for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, otherwise known as ICE, John Sandwick. It's good to have each and all. John, let me get a take from you about Trump's choice in your expertise of Mr. Homan.
Hey, look, I've known Tom a long time. Tom and I worked together during the Obama administration. I'll say a few things about Tom. Look, he's tough as he comes. He's tough as he looks when he's on television. Tom's got more experience than just about anybody when it comes to immigration enforcement and border security. I agree, and I watched that interview you did with him last night. I agree with Tom's goals. We have to secure the border. Failing to secure the border creates alternative threats and gives backdoors to cartels to get in the country. And we need to keep ICE focused on those individuals who pose a threat to public safety. My concern is that's not exactly what the president is saying. And the way in which Tom wants to go about it, look, there are other ways of doing this that are better. I mean, Tom last night said at the border, for instance, we need to expand detention so we can detain kids for longer than 20 days, right? He wants at least 40 days to detain kids. He wants to create laws that just push people back to Mexico and deny some people that are legitimately feeling persecution. And I guess my frustration is, he presents it a little bit as that's either we have an insecure border and these horrible things that come with that, or we take these draconian measures. And I think that's a false narrative, Chris. We should enforce the rule of law. We need to enforce the rule of law. But we should demand that Congress do its job, hire the immigration judges so we can have an asylum system, but also maintain the rule of law. Flood the zone with the rule of law so we can keep our laws in place. But we don't need to dump our laws.
Well, look, the key in that, you agree with Homan on, Congress has to do its damn job. They've both kept this problem going because the problem works better politically for the parties than solving it. Hopefully the time has come and they feel the public pressure and Trump puts the screws to them, and then they can work out this balance that you're talking about. And I think you're right to pick it out. Ashish, it's good to have you, brother. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Dr. Jha, Bobby Kennedy, HHS, we both know, and especially my audience knows, mostly, independent critical thinkers. Bobby said some really extreme things, that there's no such thing as a safe and effective vaccine, that the COVID vaccine kills more people than it saves. Now he's going to be the head of HHS. He says he's not an anti-vaxxer. What's your take?
Yeah, so, Chris, first of all, thanks for having me back. And look, I am worried about this selection for a couple of reasons. I mean, take the vaccine issue aside. HHS Secretary oversees Medicare. All the senior citizens in America who depend on Medicare, whole set of policies, what's going to get covered, how is the insurance going to get structured, all of that is decided at HHS. The bottom line is, for decades, we have used evidence and science to make decisions. That's been true for Democratic HHS secretaries, it's been true for Republican ones. Alex Azar, Trump's last secretary, did a very good job on these things. RFK Jr. has a bunch of ideas that just don't pass the basic test of either logic or science and evidence. And I worry if he begins to apply that to the way he thinks about Medicare, the way he thinks about that to all the other things, we are going to have serious lives at risk. So that's my concern about him. It's not a criticism of Donald Trump. Again, he's picked some very good people in the past. I am deeply worried about this. It is not something that I think is going to be good for the American people.
Just a quick beat, and then I want to go back to the other fellows about, what we just learned from him. You do agree with Bobby, though, and because it's just a fact, obesity, childhood diabetes with everybody, totally. Everything is getting worse. And that's what his focus is supposed to be, not destroying Medicare.
No, look, I do agree, but he has a whole bunch of things. He's talked about fluoride. He's talked about how COVID was designed to spare Jewish people. I mean, he has some pretty crazy ideas. But on obesity, he's right. Of course, all of us know obesity is a huge crisis. That's not an interesting fact. To me, the question is, what are you going to do about it? What are the policies? Government going to dictate to food companies what food they can make? Is that going to be the policy? I want to see
what they can put in it.
Oh, fine. Let's talk about what additives are you going to allow, which ones are not. Who's going to pick? Is it going to be government agencies? Use science to make those decisions. That's where the rubber hits the road. I'm with you, but big pronouncements aren't going to get us there.
I get you, but that's always true. What I'm just saying is everybody is wasting all their calories, pun intended, in worrying about what he might be. Let's see what he does. And then we'll have the conversation. We'll go with what the process is. We'll go with what the policies are, and we'll have the conversation. Let me just get a quick take from you guys before I give it to Dan. Lance, does it seem to you that Trump is where he needs to be in terms of pushing ideas forward, or is he just celebrating?
Yeah, look, I think you got to look at this whole process and how it's unfolded in the last 9 days. I think they have operated with just a ruthless efficiency. Susie Wiles at the helm of this thing and cranking these names out and putting things out there. And yeah, look, the policy is going to continue to come forward, but I do think they need to be commended, whether you agree with who he's putting out there or not. The process itself is much more streamlined, and they deserve a lot of credit for that.
Geraldo?
I think the most important sentence that the president-elect said just now had to do with the migrant caravan breaking up before it got to the border. No, nothing really has changed yet at the southern border, and yet I maintain that it was Biden's expressed compassion that helped cause the breakdown on the southern border. It's by saying, send us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses. They came. With Trump thundering the way he has been. He should do that every day, because the more that turn back voluntarily, the less stress on John's successor at the border and our resources, ICE and Border Patrol and so forth. If we can voluntarily get them to be dissuaded from coming in an irregular way, I think that's good. That's good. The more that you save a lot of agony if you stop people from getting involved in that grinder at the Rio Grande. So right. I like that. I'm good.
Go ahead. I give you the last word. Nobody cuts off Geraldo Rivera. What do you want me to lose my job? Go ahead.
You're so kind to me. I basically finished my point. I just think, and in terms of the doctor and what RFK Jr., he is going to be a disruptor. And as far as I know, and all the stories I've done about the price of drugs domestically compared to the price of drugs in other countries, the influence of lobbyists on big pharma on decisions that should be scientific and medical based. I would love to see RFK Jr. disrupt that corrupt system, because I don't think anyone suggests for a second that all of the money we spend on healthcare is well spent, and that all the people involved, like the advertisements, I never, when I was a kid, saw advertisements for medicine with names I could barely say, and the disclaimer at the end, this will make you young and virile, and this, except it gives you heart disease and kills you and kills your family. And, so I think that I'd like to see disruption in that area as well, to a point.
Let me tell you all, guys, this story to leave. Right before the show, I'm listening to Leland Vittert. Leland's before me, right? And I'm listening to him, and he's talking to Dr. Drew, and he says, hey, there's got to be something going on, because, the Italians, all they do is eat pasta and drink wine, and they're not as sick as we are. And I'm sitting, getting ready, and as an Italian American, that's what we do. That's what happens. All Italians eat pasta.